What if progress meant risking everything you love? The news flashed across Emily Carter's screen like a thunderclap. The Federal Aviation Administration had just given SpaceX the green light for 25 Starship launches over Hawaii. She sat frozen in her small apartment overlooking the Pacific, the salty breeze mixing with the sharp sting of anxiety rising inside her. This was not just another government announcement or tech milestone. For Emily, it was personal. Her beloved islands, the lush forests and sacred shores she had grown up loving, were about to become a testing ground for rockets reaching for the stars. The screen scrolled through the official statement, praising the promise of innovation and space exploration, yet barely touching on the concerns raised by environmentalists and native communities. Emily's heart pounded. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? These words echoed from the online forum where she had first discovered the news. She wasn't alone in her conflicted feelings. As an aerospace engineer recently hired to work on SpaceX's Hawaii operations team, Emily balanced on a razor's edge between the promise of scientific achievement and the cost to the land she loved. Her phone buzzed with messages from colleagues excited about the announcement. Elon Musk's vision of colonizing Mars felt closer than ever. Yet her family, deeply rooted in Hawaiian culture, feared what these repeated launches might bring: pollution, disruption, and the erasure of sacred spaces. The FAA's approval was a green light for change, but also a spotlight on the tensions simmering beneath the surface. Emily's thoughts drifted back to her childhood. Growing up in Maui, she remembered the stories her father told. A retired Navy pilot who had navigated the skies with precision and awe. He had instilled in her a love for flight and exploration. But her mother, a devoted environmentalist, taught her to honor the earth and its delicate balance. That duality shaped Emily's soul, a fierce passion for space and a deep respect for nature. Now, that balance felt shattered. As she prepared to leave for work, the distant rumble of a test rocket launch echoed faintly, a reminder that the countdown to a new era was already underway. At the community meeting that evening, Emily witnessed firsthand the storm of emotions sweeping through her island home. Residents gathered in the town hall, voices raised in concern and hope. Some saw the launches as a beacon of progress and opportunity, a chance for Hawaii to take a place on the global stage of space innovation. Others spoke of the fragile ecosystems threatened by the rocket plumes and noise. Native elders recounted the sacred stories tied to the land, urging caution and respect. Emily listened, torn between her roles, an engineer pushing for breakthroughs and a daughter of the island pleading for preservation. The air was thick with tension, but also with a flicker of hope. Could technology and tradition find a way to coexist? As the crowd dispersed, Emily's phone lit up with a message from her younger brother, Kai. He was struggling with a respiratory illness, one she suspected might be linked to recent environmental changes. The thought twisted her gut. The stakes had suddenly become painfully real. Back in her apartment, she scrolled through data reports, seeking answers, searching for a solution that could satisfy both progress and protection. Then a message popped up from an unexpected source. Elon Musk himself was scheduled to visit the Hawaii site next week. The prospect filled her with a strange mix of excitement and dread. What would she say if she had the chance to speak directly to the man driving these launches? As the night deepened, Emily's mind raced with questions. Could she find a way to protect her home without sacrificing her dreams? What if she failed? What if progress came at too high a price? The answer lay ahead in the uncertain horizon, where rockets would rise and fall, and a woman's courage would be tested like never before. What if progress meant risking everything you love? The news flashed across Emily Carter's screen like a thunderclap. The Federal Aviation Administration had just given SpaceX the green light for 25 Starship launches over Hawaii. She sat frozen in her small apartment overlooking the Pacific, the salty breeze mixing with the sharp sting of anxiety rising inside her. This was not just another government announcement or tech milestone. For Emily, it was personal. Her beloved islands, the lush forests and sacred shores she had grown up loving, were about to become a testing ground for rockets reaching for the stars. The screen scrolled through the official statement, praising the promise of innovation and space exploration, yet barely touching on the concerns raised by environmentalists and native communities. Emily's heart pounded. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? These words echoed from the online forum where she had first discovered the news. She wasn't alone in her conflicted feelings. As an aerospace engineer recently hired to work on SpaceX's Hawaii operations team, Emily balanced on a razor's edge between the promise of scientific achievement and the cost to the land she loved. Her phone buzzed with messages from colleagues excited about the announcement. Elon Musk's vision of colonizing Mars felt closer than ever. Yet her family, deeply rooted in Hawaiian culture, feared what these repeated launches might bring: pollution, disruption, and the erasure of sacred spaces. The FAA's approval was a green light for change, but also a spotlight on the tensions simmering beneath the surface. Emily's thoughts drifted back to her childhood. Growing up in Maui, she remembered the stories her father told, a retired Navy pilot who had navigated the skies with precision and awe. He had instilled in her a love for flight and exploration. But her mother, a devoted environmentalist, taught her to honor the earth and its delicate balance. That duality shaped Emily's soul, a fierce passion for space and a deep respect for nature. Now, that balance felt shattered. As she prepared to leave for work, the distant rumble of a test rocket launch echoed faintly, a reminder that the countdown to a new era was already underway. At the community meeting that evening, Emily witnessed firsthand the storm of emotions sweeping through her island home. Residents gathered in the town hall, voices raised in concern and hope. Some saw the launches as a beacon of progress and opportunity, a chance for Hawaii to take a place on the global stage of space innovation. Others spoke of the fragile ecosystems threatened by the rocket plumes and noise. Native elders recounted the sacred stories tied to the land, urging caution and respect. Emily listened, torn between her roles, an engineer pushing for breakthroughs and a daughter of the island pleading for preservation. The air was thick with tension, but also with a flicker of hope. Could technology and tradition find a way to coexist? As the crowd dispersed, Emily's phone lit up with a message from her younger brother, Kai. He was struggling with a respiratory illness, one she suspected might be linked to recent environmental changes. The thought twisted her gut. The stakes had suddenly become painfully real. Back in her apartment, she scrolled through data reports, seeking answers, searching for a solution that could satisfy both progress and protection. Then a message popped up from an unexpected source: Elon Musk himself was scheduled to visit the Hawaii site next week. The prospect filled her with a strange mix of excitement and dread. What would she say if she had the chance to speak directly to the man driving these launches? As the night deepened, Emily's mind raced with questions. Could she find a way to protect her home without sacrificing her dreams? What if she failed? What if progress came at too high a price? The answer lay ahead in the uncertain horizon, where rockets would rise and fall, and a woman's courage would be tested like never before. The next morning, Emily stood on the beach, watching the sun rise over the calm Pacific. The golden light painted the waves in hues of orange and pink, but beneath that beauty, she felt the weight of the news settling deeper. Her phone buzzed with updates: SpaceX teams were mobilizing, launch schedules were being drawn up, and the FAA's approval had opened the floodgates for a series of missions that would stretch across months. As a lead engineer, Emily was tasked with overseeing environmental compliance for the Hawaii operations, a role that seemed straightforward until she realized the complexity of balancing corporate ambition with island preservation. Her first call was with Jake Lawson, her project manager and longtime friend. "Emily, this is huge. 25 launches. That's a game changer. The future of space travel is right here," Jake said enthusiastically. But, Emily replied carefully, "we need to make sure the impact on the land and people is minimized. I don't want to be part of something that destroys what makes Hawaii special." Jake sighed. I get it. But Elon's counting on us. The whole world is watching. That tension echoed in Emily's mind as she began her day at the launch facility nestled near the coast. The site buzzed with activity, engineers calibrating instruments, safety teams running checks, scientists poring over environmental data. Emily's role was clear, to ensure that every launch adhered to strict ecological standards, from controlling emissions to monitoring wildlife disturbances. Yet, deep down, she wondered if even the best protocols could truly protect the islands. Later that afternoon, Emily visited her parents' home. The contrast between her two worlds hit her hard as she walked through the lush garden her mother had tended for decades. Her father greeted her with a warm smile, but the worry was evident in his eyes. "Emily, you're caught between two storms," he said quietly. "Your mother fears the changes the launches will bring. I believe in your work, but I see the cost too." Her mother joined them, her voice steady but firm. "Our home is sacred. These rockets, they leave scars, not just on the land, but on our people's spirit." Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. "I want to help find a balance. I'm not ready to give up on either side." The family shared a long silence, the ocean breeze carrying the scent of plumeria and salt. That evening, Emily attended another community gathering, this time with SpaceX representatives present. Elon Musk himself was there, his presence commanding yet approachable. When he spoke about humanity's future among the stars, hope ignited in the room. But when he addressed the environmental concerns, his answers felt rehearsed, leaving many unsatisfied. Emily found herself at a crossroads. Should she trust the company she worked for, or stand with her community? The day of Elon's private visit arrived with a blend of nervous anticipation and determination. Emily prepared a report detailing her environmental recommendations and concerns, hoping to influence the plans directly. In the conference room overlooking the launch pad, Elon greeted the team with his usual energy. When it was her turn to speak, Emily's voice was steady despite the butterflies. "Mr. Musk, I respect the vision and the progress SpaceX brings. But the approval for 25 launches over Hawaii raises serious ecological and cultural concerns. I've outlined measures to reduce emissions, monitor wildlife, and preserve sacred sites. We must ensure these launches don't come at the cost of the island's future." Elon listened intently, then smiled. "Emily, innovation requires bold steps. I appreciate your dedication to balance. We'll review your recommendations carefully. This isn't just about rockets, it's about humanity's survival." As the meeting ended, Emily felt a cautious optimism. Change was coming, and she had a voice in shaping it. But the challenges were far from over. The days that followed brought unexpected turbulence. A technical glitch delayed the first scheduled launch, stirring frustration among the SpaceX teams and igniting protests from local activists. Emily found herself caught in the middle. Her colleagues pressured her to expedite environmental approvals, while community members demanded a halt. She worked late nights, coordinating tests, reviewing data, and attending meetings to mediate between the competing interests. One evening, as she sat alone in the control room, her phone buzzed with a message from Kai. "Emily, I'm scared. My breathing's worse. The doctor says it might be linked to the air quality." Panic surged through her. She had suspected the launch's emissions could impact health, but now it was no longer theory. It was personal. Determined, Emily pored over environmental impact studies, cross-referencing pollution levels with medical reports. The data painted a troubling picture. Yet she refused to accept defeat. With renewed resolve, she drafted a proposal for enhanced filtration systems, reduced launch frequency during vulnerable weather conditions, and increased monitoring stations around residential areas. The following community meeting became a turning point. Emily presented her findings and solutions candidly, acknowledging the risks but offering concrete steps to mitigate them. Her honesty and passion bridged the divide, earning tentative trust from both sides. As the first successful launch approached, Emily stood beside the launch pad, her heart racing. The towering Starship gleamed under the Hawaiian sun, engines humming with raw power. The countdown began, and as the rocket soared skyward, a mixture of awe and relief washed over her. This was more than a test of technology, it was a test of balance, of hope, and of humanity's future. In the weeks that followed, Emily's role expanded beyond engineering. She became a liaison, a voice for the islands within the corridors of innovation. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with technical challenges, community concerns, and the relentless pace of progress. But Emily knew one thing for sure: to navigate the cosmos, you must first respect the ground beneath your feet. And so, as the sun set over Hawaii's rugged shores, she looked toward the stars with determination, ready to fight for a future where rockets could rise without leaving scars on the earth they launched from. The journey was only beginning. Emily woke to the sound of distant waves crashing against the shore, the early morning light filtering softly through the sheer curtains of her apartment. Outside, the air was heavy with the scent of salt and tropical flowers, but inside her mind, a storm brewed. The previous weeks had been a whirlwind: the FAA's approval, Elon Musk's visit, the tense community meetings, her brother Kai's worsening condition, all intertwined in a tangled knot of hope and fear. Today, a new launch window was approaching, and Emily felt the weight of responsibility pressing down harder than ever. At SpaceX's Hawaii Operations Center, the atmosphere was electric with urgency and anticipation. Engineers and technicians bustled about, preparing for what was to be the second Starship launch over the island. After the delay and technical glitch of the first attempt, everyone was on edge, hoping for a smooth ascent but bracing for possible setbacks. Emily's role had expanded beyond environmental oversight; she was now a crucial part of the team, balancing technical demands with ecological concerns. She moved through the control room with focused purpose, checking instruments and consulting data feeds. The environmental sensors she had insisted on installing dotted the landscape around the launch site, tracking air quality, wildlife activity, and noise levels in real time. But despite all the preparations, Emily could not shake the nagging doubt: were they truly doing enough to protect the fragile Hawaiian ecosystem? At midday, Emily met with the local community leaders who had agreed to a private tour of the SpaceX facility. Among them was Leilani, a respected native Hawaiian elder whose presence commanded quiet respect. Leilani's calm eyes surveyed the sprawling complex with a mixture of curiosity and cautious hope. "Emily," Leilani said softly, "this land holds the memories of our ancestors. Every stone and tree carries their mana. Progress is necessary, yes, but it must honor those who came before." Emily nodded solemnly. "I understand, Leilani. That's why I'm committed to ensuring these launches cause as little harm as possible. Your people's voices are essential in this process." Leilani smiled faintly, but Emily sensed the deep-seated conflict beneath her composed exterior. As the sun climbed higher, Emily returned to her desk and reviewed the latest health reports from the island clinics. Kai's condition was stabilizing but fragile, with doctors emphasizing the importance of clean air and stress reduction. The correlation between the launch emissions and respiratory issues in some residents was not yet definitive, but it weighed heavily on Emily's conscience. She began drafting a proposal to introduce additional buffer zones and limit launches during periods of high pollutant concentration. Hours later, Elon Musk called an emergency meeting. The news was urgent: a technical issue had been detected in the Starship's fuel system that could delay the upcoming launch. The room filled with tension as engineers scrambled to diagnose and fix the problem. Emily found herself mediating between the technical team's drive to solve the issue quickly and her own insistence on pausing to reassess environmental safeguards. The conversation was heated. "We can't afford another delay," one engineer argued. "The schedule is tight, and investors are watching." Emily countered firmly, "And we can't afford to jeopardize the island's health and safety. We have to get this right." Elon's voice cut through the tension. "Emily's right. We want to push boundaries, but not at the expense of the environment or people. Safety and sustainability have to be non-negotiable." The room fell silent, the message clear. Over the next days, Emily worked tirelessly alongside technicians, scientists, and community representatives to implement new protocols. She coordinated with Hawaiian environmental groups, listening to their concerns and incorporating traditional ecological knowledge into the launch planning. The process was painstaking but necessary. Meanwhile, in her personal life, Emily found solace in quiet moments with her family. One evening, sitting on the lanai as the stars shimmered overhead, Kai reached out and squeezed her hand. "You're fighting for all of us," he said softly. "Don't lose hope." His words fortified her resolve. The launch day finally arrived, cloaked in humid heat and a restless breeze. Spectators gathered miles away on designated viewing points, while Emily and the launch team prepared for liftoff. The Starship stood tall against the blue sky, gleaming like a silver arrow aimed at the heavens. As the countdown commenced, Emily's thoughts raced. Could they really succeed in balancing human ambition with the preservation of this sacred land? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the engines roared to life, flames and smoke billowing as the massive rocket surged upward. A collective gasp rose from the crowd as the Starship pierced the clouds, ascending into the vast unknown. Tears pricked Emily's eyes. This was more than a technical achievement, it was a symbol of humanity's enduring spirit, tempered by respect for the Earth. The launch was flawless. Data streamed back confirming that emissions and noise remained within the newly established limits. For the first time, hope and progress felt truly aligned. In the days following, Emily's work took on new meaning. Her proposal for enhanced environmental monitoring was approved by SpaceX leadership and the FAA, setting a precedent for future launches. The community's fears began to ease as transparent communication bridged gaps of mistrust. Emily herself was changed. She realized that true innovation was not just about reaching new frontiers, but about honoring the past and protecting the future. Yet, challenges remained. Rumors circulated of budget cuts threatening the environmental program. Some engineers pushed to speed up launch sequences, risking oversights. Emily found herself confronting not just external obstacles, but internal ones as well, the tension between idealism and pragmatism. One afternoon, an urgent call came from Leilani. A rare nesting site for native birds near the launch area had been disturbed during equipment transport. The news hit Emily like a punch to the gut. She rushed to the site, surveying the damage. The fragile eggs lay abandoned in a disturbed nest. Regret and determination mingled inside her. This setback crystallized the stakes. It was not enough to react, they had to anticipate and prevent harm before it happened. Emily convened an emergency task force, pulling together experts in ecology, indigenous knowledge, and aerospace engineering. Together, they developed a plan to restore the habitat, temporarily halt launches if endangered species were present, and train crews on cultural sensitivity. The collaborative effort began to heal the rift between SpaceX and the local communities. As months passed, Emily witnessed subtle but meaningful shifts. Launch schedules incorporated native planting seasons. Employees attended workshops on Hawaiian history and ecology. The island's residents, once skeptical, started to see the company as a partner rather than an invader. Amidst this progress, Emily's own journey continued. She faced long nights wrestling with doubts, balancing her love for space exploration with her commitment to the islands. At times, the pressure felt unbearable. Yet, each morning, as the sun rose over the Cerulean Sea, she reminded herself of the question that had propelled her forward: what if progress meant risking everything you love? The answer, she believed, lay in fighting to protect what mattered most. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii was not just a tale of rockets and regulations, it was a human story, of sacrifice, hope, and the delicate dance between innovation and tradition. And at its heart stood a woman determined to chart a course where both could thrive. The morning after the successful launch, Emily sat quietly on her lanai, the warm Hawaiian breeze brushing her face as she gazed out at the endless expanse of ocean meeting sky. The Starship's fiery ascent still danced in her mind, a symbol of human ingenuity and the unyielding drive to reach beyond the stars. Yet, even amid the triumph, the complex reality beneath weighed on her. This was not just a scientific victory, it was the beginning of a long, difficult balancing act between progress and preservation. Her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Jake Lawson, her project manager. "Great job yesterday. Elon was impressed with your presentation. Let's keep pushing forward." Emily smiled, but the smile felt bittersweet. The praise reminded her of the pressure mounting to maintain momentum. While the launch was a success, 25 more were scheduled over the coming months, each carrying its own potential for disruption. Later that day, she met with the Environmental Oversight Committee, a group of scientists, community leaders, and SpaceX representatives tasked with monitoring the ongoing impact of the launches. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Dr. Maya Tanaka, an ecologist specializing in island ecosystems, opened the meeting. Preliminary data shows that air quality has improved since the new filtration systems were installed, but noise pollution remains a concern, especially during nesting seasons for native birds. Leilani nodded in agreement. The cultural sites are still vulnerable. We must ensure no further disturbances. Emily took detailed notes, already brainstorming additional safeguards. The committee discussed expanding green buffer zones around the launch area and implementing stricter limits on launch timing to avoid sensitive periods. Emily realized these measures would require negotiations with SpaceX leadership and possibly impact launch schedules, but the trade-offs were necessary. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily drove along the coastline to visit Kai at the hospital. The ride was quiet, the gentle hum of the car mingling with the rhythmic crashing of waves. Kai greeted her with a tired smile. "You did good today," he said softly. "You're making a difference." Emily squeezed his hand. "We're in this together." His condition was stable but fragile, and the thought of how the launches might affect not only Kai but the entire community galvanized her resolve. The next week brought a wave of new challenges. A sudden storm swept across the islands, forcing a postponement of several launches. While frustrating for the teams, the pause offered a rare chance to collect more comprehensive environmental data. Emily worked alongside scientists to analyze how weather patterns affected pollutant dispersal and wildlife behavior. The findings revealed that stormy conditions tended to concentrate emissions closer to populated areas, heightening potential risks. Armed with this insight, Emily drafted recommendations to avoid launches during specific weather events, further prioritizing community health. However, not everyone welcomed the added restrictions. At a heated internal SpaceX meeting, some engineers voiced frustration. "Delays cost millions," one argued. "We can't afford to compromise on timelines." Emily stood firm. "Our mission is to expand humanity's horizons, yes, but not at the expense of the people and planet that support us. Sustainability is part of the equation, not an obstacle." Elon Musk himself entered the room, his presence commanding attention. "Emily's right. Innovation requires responsibility. We lead not just in technology, but in ethics. Let's find solutions that honor both." The support bolstered Emily's position, yet she knew the battle for balance was ongoing. Meanwhile, whispers of opposition began to grow louder in the community. Some activists accused SpaceX of greenwashing, claiming the environmental measures were insufficient or insincere. Anonymous social media posts circulated images of disturbed habitats and calls for immediate cessation of launches. Emily grappled with the backlash, understanding the deep wounds and mistrust beneath the protests. She decided to organize an open forum, inviting residents, activists, SpaceX staff, and scientists to engage in honest dialogue. The event was held in a large community center, filled to capacity. Voices rose, emotions flared, and stories were shared, tales of ancestral lands, health concerns, and dreams of progress all woven together in a complex tapestry. Emily listened intently, acknowledging fears and frustrations while sharing transparent updates on environmental efforts. The forum was not perfect, but it was a crucial step toward rebuilding trust. Afterward, a small group approached Emily, including Leilani and a young activist named Nalu. "Thank you for listening," Leilani said quietly. "It is hard to trust, but this is a start." Nalu added, "We want to work with you, not against you. But the scars run deep." Their words touched Emily deeply. She realized that true partnership required humility, patience, and ongoing commitment. The weeks that followed were marked by both progress and setbacks. Emily led initiatives to plant native flora around the launch site, creating new habitats to replace those affected. Crew members participated in cultural workshops, deepening their understanding of the island's significance. Launch schedules were adjusted to respect community rhythms and ecological cycles. Yet, challenges persisted. Unexpected technical glitches delayed another launch, fueling skepticism and frustration. A sudden spike in Kai's symptoms reminded Emily of the stakes at hand. One afternoon, Emily received a call from a young SpaceX engineer, Carlos, who confided his concerns. "I want to help protect the environment, but sometimes it feels like the company just wants results, fast results. How do we balance that with what you're trying to do?" Emily smiled warmly. "That's the heart of the challenge. But every small step toward respect and care counts. Change doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey we take together." With Carlos's support, Emily formed a grassroots environmental task force within SpaceX, empowering employees to champion sustainable practices. This internal movement slowly gained momentum, shifting company culture toward greater ecological mindfulness. Months later, another launch approached, but this time with renewed confidence and stronger safeguards in place. As Emily stood at the control room window, watching the Starship prepare for liftoff, she reflected on how far they had come. The rocket ignited, soaring gracefully into the sky, a testament to human aspiration and careful stewardship. The island below, vibrant and alive, was a reminder that progress and preservation need not be at odds. In the quiet aftermath, Emily received a text from Kai, "Proud of you. Keep fighting." Her heart swelled with gratitude and determination. The journey was far from over, but the path forward was clearer. Emily knew that with courage, compassion, and collaboration, humanity could reach the stars without losing sight of the earth beneath its feet. As night blanketed the islands, the stars twinkled overhead like distant promises. And Emily, standing at the crossroads of innovation and tradition, was ready to lead the way. The weeks following the triumphant launch were a whirlwind of activity, reflection, and new challenges for Emily. The success had lifted spirits, yet the underlying tensions remained palpable. SpaceX's ambitious plan for 25 Starship launches over Hawaii promised unprecedented technological feats, but it also posed ongoing threats to the fragile island ecosystem and the communities living there. Emily felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever, knowing that each launch was a decision with profound consequences. Early one morning, as the sun rose over the Pacific, Emily met with Dr. Maya Tanaka and a group of local ecologists to review the latest environmental data. The recent storms had delayed several launches, which provided valuable opportunities to study how weather influenced the dispersion of emissions and wildlife patterns. Maya pointed to a series of charts displaying spikes in airborne particulates coinciding with launch days. While the new filtration systems have reduced harmful outputs, we still see localized effects, especially during inversion layers when pollutants can't disperse, she explained. We need to develop a more dynamic launch schedule that accounts for these atmospheric conditions. Emily nodded thoughtfully. We'll need to coordinate closely with meteorologists and the FAA to implement weather-based launch windows. It might slow down the schedule, but protecting air quality is non-negotiable. Later that afternoon, Emily attended a strategy meeting at SpaceX headquarters. The room buzzed with engineers, project managers, and executives debating how best to balance the pressing demands of the launch timeline with the growing list of environmental precautions. Jake Lawson, her project manager, leaned forward. Delays are costing us millions. Investors are nervous. How do we keep momentum without cutting corners? Emily took a deep breath. Momentum built on environmental neglect won't last. We have a duty to be stewards, not just innovators. That means incorporating scientific data, community feedback, and cultural respect into every decision. Elon Musk joined the meeting, his presence commanding attention. Emily's approach is critical. Sustainability is a core part of SpaceX's mission going forward. We don't just want to reach the stars, we want to do it responsibly. His endorsement shifted the room's energy, but the path ahead was still steep. Amid these pressures, Emily's personal life provided both refuge and motivation. She spent evenings with Kai, whose health stabilized slowly but still required constant care. One night, as they watched the stars glitter above the ocean, Kai spoke quietly, "You're doing something important here, Em. Don't let the doubts get to you." His faith in her steeled her resolve. Yet, community tension simmered. Despite the transparent forums and environmental measures, a vocal faction opposed the launches outright. Posters declaring, "Save our islands," and "No more Starships," appeared in towns, and social media debates grew heated. Emily understood the fears were not just about rockets but about centuries of displacement and ecological harm. To bridge the divide, she worked closely with Leilani and other native Hawaiian leaders to deepen dialogue. Together, they initiated a cultural stewardship program, integrating indigenous knowledge into environmental monitoring and launch protocols. The program trained SpaceX staff on Hawaiian traditions, language, and land stewardship principles. This effort gradually built trust and fostered collaboration, transforming adversaries into partners. One afternoon, Emily received a troubling report. A rare Hawaiian petrel nesting ground near the launch site had been disturbed during equipment delivery. The fragile nests, hidden among native shrubs, were damaged, threatening the species' survival. Emily felt a familiar surge of guilt and determination. She immediately convened an emergency task force with ecologists, engineers, and community representatives to assess the damage and plan remediation. They implemented a temporary moratorium on launches until the area could be restored and stricter guidelines for site access established. This incident underscored the fragile balance they navigated daily. Emily realized that reactive measures were insufficient, proactive, preventative strategies were essential. To that end, she championed the development of an advanced environmental impact monitoring system that combines satellite imagery, drones, and on-the-ground sensors to provide real-time data on habitat conditions. The system would enable swift responses to any disturbances and inform adaptive management practices. As the months passed, Emily's efforts began to shift the culture within SpaceX's Hawaiian operations. Environmental awareness grew among engineers and staff, with many volunteering for restoration projects and cultural workshops. Carlos, the young engineer she had mentored, spearheaded a green innovation initiative proposing ways to minimize waste and improve energy efficiency. The company's leadership embraced these initiatives, recognizing that sustainability was becoming a competitive advantage, not a burden. Still, challenges persisted. Pressure to accelerate the launch schedule mounted as new contracts with NASA and commercial clients demanded rapid progress. Balancing these demands with community and environmental commitments tested Emily's resolve daily. One evening, exhausted and overwhelmed, she confided in Leilani during a quiet walk along a moonlit beach. "Sometimes I wonder if we can really pull this off," Emily admitted. "If we can truly honor the land and the people while pushing forward with such bold technology." Leilani smiled gently. "The land has endured storms, volcanoes, and centuries of change. It is resilient. So are you. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep leading with respect. That is how we move forward." Emily drew strength from Leilani's wisdom, redoubling her commitment. The next launch approached amid heightened scrutiny. Extensive preparations ensured that environmental protocols were meticulously followed. Community liaisons coordinated with residents to minimize disruption, and real-time monitoring provided transparent updates to all stakeholders. As the Starship soared into the sky once more, Emily felt a profound mix of hope and humility. This launch was not just a test of engineering but of a vision, that progress and preservation could coexist. In the following weeks, data confirmed that emissions and noise remained within safe limits, and no new habitat disruptions occurred. Public sentiment began to shift as more residents saw tangible benefits, educational programs funded by SpaceX, local job opportunities, and environmental restoration efforts. Emily's team received recognition for pioneering a model of responsible space exploration. Yet, Emily knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead would demand continuous vigilance, adaptability, and collaboration. Each launch was a step into the unknown, not just of space but of how humanity chose to tread lightly upon its home. Reflecting on her journey, Emily understood that the true achievement was not the rockets reaching orbit, but the bridges built between science, culture, and community. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii was more than a tale of technology, it was a narrative of reconciliation, respect, and hope. As the sun set over the islands, casting golden light on the waves, Emily felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, guided by the knowledge that progress, when anchored in care and conscience, could indeed change the world. The days blurred into weeks as Emily dove deeper into the complex web of challenges surrounding SpaceX's Starship launches in Hawaii. Each morning, she awoke with a blend of determination and exhaustion, aware that the stakes extended far beyond the technical marvel of rockets piercing the sky. The fragile island ecosystem, the sacred cultural sites, and the well-being of families like hers, especially Kai's, rested on the decisions she helped shape. The launch schedule was intensifying, with multiple Starships slated to ascend in rapid succession. Balancing speed with stewardship required ingenuity, diplomacy, and sometimes, painful compromises. One particularly humid afternoon, Emily convened a meeting with the newly formed Cultural and Environmental Advisory Council. The group brought together Hawaiian elders, local scientists, SpaceX engineers, and community activists, all united by a shared, if complicated, vision. Leilani opened the session with a prayer, invoking the spirits of the land and sea to guide their work. Emily felt the weight of tradition settle over the room, a reminder that their modern ambitions were entwined with centuries of history. Our ancestors teach us that land is not property, but a living entity, Leilani said solemnly. We must care for it as we would our own family. Maya Tanaka presented the latest ecological surveys, noting subtle shifts in bird migration patterns and the health of native flora. The data is promising, but we cannot be complacent. The island's ecosystems are resilient, yet vulnerable to cumulative impacts. The engineers detailed recent technical upgrades designed to minimize emissions and reduce noise. Carlos shared a proposal for enhanced crew training focused on cultural awareness and environmental sensitivity. The dialogue was honest and sometimes fraught, with voices raising concerns about delays and costs. Emily facilitated, striving to balance urgency with patience. After hours of discussion, the council agreed on several key initiatives: expanding native habitat restoration projects, implementing dynamic launch scheduling based on ecological data, and fostering continuous community engagement. The collaboration marked a hopeful turning point, though Emily knew challenges would persist. That evening, Emily returned home feeling the familiar ache of Kai's absence. He was still hospitalized, his condition delicate. She sat beside his bed, taking his frail hand in hers. "We're fighting for you," she whispered. "For all of us." Kai smiled weakly, squeezing her fingers. "Keep going, Em. You're the light in this." The personal and professional intertwined, fueling her resolve. As the next launch window approached, Emily coordinated closely with meteorologists to optimize timing. They identified a narrow period when atmospheric conditions would best disperse emissions away from populated areas and sensitive habitats. On launch day, the island was alive with a mix of anticipation and tension. SpaceX staff moved with practiced efficiency, while community members gathered at designated observation points, some hopeful, others skeptical. Emily stood near the control room window, watching the gleaming Starship against a backdrop of blue sky and lush green hills. The countdown began, 10, 9, 8, and Emily felt her pulse quicken. When the engines ignited, a thunderous roar shook the earth, and the rocket ascended in a blazing plume. Cheers erupted, but Emily's gaze remained steady, monitoring real-time environmental data streaming in. The readings stayed within safe thresholds. The launch was a success both technically and ecologically. In the days that followed, Emily organized workshops and outreach programs to share the experience and progress with the community. She invited local schools to participate in science and culture classes, fostering a new generation inspired by the stars and grounded in their heritage. However, not all challenges could be soothed by celebration. One morning, Emily received a call from an anxious technician. An unexpected fuel leak had been detected in one of the Starships scheduled for a later launch. The issue was serious and required immediate attention. The news sent ripples through the team, threatening to derail months of progress. At an emergency meeting, engineers laid out repair timelines and risk assessments. Some urged pushing forward, fearing further delays, while others advocated for a full safety review. Emily listened carefully, then spoke with quiet authority. We cannot sacrifice safety or environmental integrity for speed. Our commitment is to responsible exploration. We will fix this thoroughly, even if it means postponing. Elon Musk supported her stance, emphasizing that trust depended on transparency and caution. Over the following weeks, repairs proceeded meticulously, and additional safety protocols were implemented. Emily worked tirelessly to keep community stakeholders informed, addressing concerns and reinforcing the message that safety and stewardship were paramount. The delay frustrated some investors and staff, but ultimately strengthened the program's credibility. Meanwhile, Emily deepened her relationship with Leilani and other native Hawaiian leaders. Together, they developed a Living Heritage Initiative, a program designed to document and preserve oral histories, sacred sites, and ecological knowledge connected to the launch areas. This initiative enriched SpaceX's understanding and respect for the land, weaving culture into the fabric of innovation. One afternoon, while reviewing plans for an upcoming launch, Emily received unexpected news. The FAA had granted approval to increase the number of annual Starship flights over Hawaii, contingent on continued compliance with environmental standards. The announcement was both exhilarating and sobering. The scale of operations was growing, and with it, the magnitude of responsibility. Emily felt a surge of resolve. This was her moment to lead, to prove that cutting-edge technology and deep respect for place could coexist. In preparation, she spearheaded a comprehensive review of all protocols, enhancing monitoring systems and expanding community outreach. She also championed the creation of an independent oversight committee to ensure accountability and transparency. As the launch cadence increased, Emily balanced the technical demands with her personal commitments. Kai's health improved gradually, allowing him to return home, where Emily cared for him tenderly. Their shared journey through illness and hope became a wellspring of strength. On the night before another launch, Emily stood on her lanai, gazing at the star-studded sky. The vastness of space mirrored the vastness of possibilities, and responsibilities, before her. She thought of the people who had walked these islands for generations, the engineers pushing boundaries, and the children dreaming of worlds beyond Earth. The next morning, the Starship rose once again, a brilliant streak against the Hawaiian sky. This time, Emily felt not just hope but a profound sense of harmony, between human ambition and the enduring spirit of the land. Her journey was far from over, but the path ahead was lit by the lessons of the past and the promise of the future. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii was no longer just about rockets, it was about forging a new way forward, where innovation honored tradition, and where progress was measured not just by distance traveled, but by the care taken along the way. The increasing pace of Starship launches over Hawaii marked a new chapter for Emily and everyone involved. Each successful flight was a testament to human ingenuity, but also a constant reminder of the delicate balance they must maintain between ambition and responsibility. The FAA's recent approval for 25 annual launches had accelerated the timeline, requiring Emily to scale up her efforts across multiple fronts: technical, environmental, and social. Emily found herself at the center of a complex network of stakeholders: SpaceX engineers pushing for rapid progress, local communities wary of disruption, environmental scientists tracking the fragile island ecosystems, and native Hawaiian leaders protecting sacred lands and cultural heritage. Balancing these interests required constant diplomacy, transparency, and adaptability. One early morning, as the sun painted the sky with soft hues of pink and orange, Emily met with Carlos and a team of engineers in the SpaceX Operations Center. They reviewed data from the latest launches, focusing on emission levels, noise measurements, and habitat impact reports. The new filtration system upgrades have cut particulate emissions by another 15%, Carlos reported, pointing to the graphs on the screen. We're also testing quieter engine cycles to reduce acoustic impact during liftoff. Emily nodded thoughtfully. That's excellent progress, but let's remember the community feedback. Even small disturbances can feel huge to residents and wildlife. We need to keep improving and be proactive about mitigation. The engineers agreed, energized by Emily's leadership and the collaborative spirit she fostered. The environmental monitoring team, including Maya Tanaka and local ecologists, had developed a real-time data dashboard accessible to both SpaceX and community representatives, increasing transparency and trust. Meanwhile, Emily's partnership with native Hawaiian leaders deepened. She met regularly with Leilani and elders like Kahu Mahealani, whose deep knowledge of the land's history and spiritual significance guided many decisions. Together, they worked to identify and protect sacred sites, integrate indigenous environmental practices, and involve local youth in restoration efforts. One afternoon, Emily joined a group of students planting native trees along a recently disturbed hillside near the launch site. As she worked the soil with her hands, she reflected on how the project symbolized their collective commitment to healing and renewal, a tangible way to honor the land and future generations. However, progress was not without setbacks. A sudden technical glitch during a launch test forced a temporary suspension of flights, triggering frustration among investors and staff. Emily addressed the situation head-on, organizing a transparent review process and communicating openly with the public. Her honesty and accountability strengthened credibility even amid disappointment. At a community town hall, residents expressed concerns about noise, traffic, and long-term environmental effects. Emily listened carefully, acknowledging the hardships and reaffirming SpaceX's commitment to collaboration and continuous improvement. She invited community members to join advisory panels and participate in monitoring efforts, empowering them with a voice in the process. Amid the mounting pressures, Emily's personal life remained a source of grounding. Kai's health improved steadily, allowing them to spend quiet evenings together, dreaming of a future shaped by hope and resilience. His unwavering support was her anchor in turbulent times. One evening, after a successful launch, Emily received a message from Elon Musk himself: "Your work here is setting a new standard for responsible space exploration. Proud to have you leading the charge." The praise buoyed her spirits but also reminded her that the road ahead would demand even greater dedication. To prepare for the increased launch frequency, Emily led efforts to enhance emergency response protocols, ensuring swift action in case of accidents or environmental hazards. Joint drills with local authorities and community volunteers strengthened preparedness and built relationships. The cultural stewardship program expanded, incorporating workshops on Hawaiian language, history, and values for SpaceX employees. These sessions fostered respect and understanding, bridging cultural divides and enriching the company's identity. Public outreach initiatives grew as well. Educational programs in schools sparked curiosity about science and space, while also instilling pride in Hawaiian heritage and environmental stewardship. Emily often spoke at events, sharing stories of challenges and triumphs, inspiring others to believe that progress and preservation could coexist. As the launch cadence intensified, Emily found moments to reflect on the journey. From the first uncertain steps to the complex, multifaceted collaboration they had built, the story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii had evolved into something greater than technology alone. It was a testament to human creativity, cultural respect, and the power of partnership. One early morning, as a new Starship soared skyward in a blaze of light and sound, Emily stood with Leilani, Maya, Carlos, and community members watching in quiet awe. The rocket's ascent was a symbol, not only of exploration beyond Earth but of a shared commitment to protect the land that had nurtured generations. Emily felt a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose. The challenges were far from over, but the path forward was illuminated by lessons learned, relationships forged, and an unwavering belief that the stars were within reach, without leaving their roots behind. As the island settled into the quiet aftermath of another successful launch, Emily whispered a promise to the land and the people she loved: "We will keep striving, keep caring, and keep dreaming together." Emily woke before dawn, the sky still a deep indigo punctuated by distant stars. Today marked a milestone, the 10th Starship launch over Hawaii since the FAA had granted the go-ahead for 25 launches annually. The journey so far had been marked by triumphs and trials, but Emily felt a cautious optimism brewing. She dressed quickly and stepped onto her lanai, breathing in the salty air mixed with the faint scent of plumeria. The islands held a sacredness that pulsed through every leaf and wave, reminding her of the immense responsibility she carried. Arriving at the SpaceX Hawaiian Operations Center, Emily was greeted by a buzz of activity. Engineers fine-tuned systems, technicians ran last-minute checks, and monitors displayed real-time environmental data streams. Carlos approached, enthusiasm lighting his face. "Emily, the new emission control software is holding steady. Noise levels are down 12% compared to previous launches. We're setting records not just for flights, but for sustainability." She smiled, heart swelling with pride. That's the progress we fought for. Yet, Emily knew the challenges ahead were as complex as ever. The next launch would be the first with a fully integrated environmental response team on site, ecologists, cultural liaisons, and emergency personnel ready to act at a moment's notice. The community's eyes were fixed on every detail. Later that morning, Emily joined a pre-launch briefing led by Maya Tanaka. The ecologists had identified a nesting colony of the endangered Hawaiian petrel within 3 miles of the launch pad. While previous launches had not significantly disturbed the birds, the proximity required heightened vigilance. "We'll be deploying drone surveillance during liftoff and recovery operations," Maya explained. "Any signs of distress, and we'll halt operations immediately." Leilani arrived shortly after, bringing a calming presence. She shared stories of how her ancestors revered the petrel as a messenger between worlds. "Their safety is intertwined with the spirit of this land," she said softly. Emily felt the convergence of science and tradition grounding their mission. As the countdown clock ticked down, Emily moved to the observation deck alongside community leaders and SpaceX staff. The Starship gleamed under the tropical sun, a towering symbol of human aspiration. The engines ignited, unleashing a thunderous roar that vibrated through the earth and hearts alike. Emily's eyes tracked the rocket's steady ascent, each second a blend of tension and awe. When the craft disappeared beyond the clouds, applause erupted, but Emily's attention quickly shifted to the environmental monitors. The data confirmed minimal impact, air quality remained within safe limits, noise abatement systems functioned flawlessly, and wildlife monitoring reported calm conditions. The launch was a technical and ecological success. In the days that followed, Emily coordinated a series of community forums. Residents shared their experiences, raised questions, and suggested ideas. While many expressed pride in Hawaii's role in space exploration, concerns about cultural preservation and environmental impacts persisted. Emily listened intently, acknowledging the fears and reaffirming SpaceX's commitment to partnership and transparency. She announced the expansion of the Cultural Stewardship Program, inviting more native Hawaiian experts to advise on future operations. Meanwhile, the Living Heritage Initiative flourished. Local youth participated in workshops blending science, history, and environmental care. Emily visited schools, inspiring students with stories of exploration grounded in respect for their islands. Yet, tension simmered beneath the surface. A vocal group opposed the launches outright, fearing irreversible damage and cultural erasure. Their protests were peaceful but passionate, and their voices amplified on social media. Emily understood their pain, rooted in histories of displacement and exploitation. She reached out personally to leaders of the movement, seeking dialogue rather than division. Over time, some conversations led to unexpected bridges, shared values, mutual respect, and collaborative solutions. One afternoon, Emily received troubling news. A fuel spill during routine maintenance had contaminated a small stream feeding into a nearby wetland. The incident sparked outrage and demanded immediate action. Emily took full responsibility, organizing a rapid response team to contain and remediate the spill. She communicated openly with the public, detailing steps taken and plans to prevent recurrence. The episode was a sobering reminder of the fragility of the balance they sought. In the aftermath, SpaceX implemented stricter safety protocols and launched a comprehensive environmental audit. Emily spearheaded the development of an advanced remote sensing system to detect and address potential hazards before they escalated. As months passed, the partnership between SpaceX and the Hawaiian community deepened. Joint restoration projects thrived, blending traditional ecological knowledge with cutting-edge science. Emily felt a profound connection to the land and its people, a bond that transcended her role as a project manager. On a clear evening, Emily sat with Kai on the beach, watching the moonlight dance across the waves. They spoke quietly about dreams, fears, and the future. Kai's health had improved steadily, his presence a beacon of hope. "You've built something extraordinary here, Em," he said. "Not just rockets, but trust and understanding." Emily squeezed his hand, grateful for the journey they shared. The next Starship launch approached amid rising excitement and scrutiny. This time, the payload carried scientific instruments designed to study Earth's atmosphere, a nod to the mission's environmental consciousness. As the rocket ascended, Emily felt the culmination of years of effort, a delicate harmony between exploration and preservation. The success was celebrated, but Emily knew the work was ongoing. She remained vigilant, committed to continuous learning and adaptation. Reflecting on the journey, Emily understood that the true achievement was not just reaching the stars, but doing so with integrity, humility, and respect. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii was a testament to the power of collaboration, resilience, and hope, a narrative that would inspire generations to come. Emily sat quietly in the dimly lit conference room, her gaze fixed on the projection of the upcoming launch schedule. The room was filled with an unusual mix of anticipation and tension. The FAA's approval to increase Starship flights over Hawaii to 25 per year had been both a victory and a challenge. Scaling operations at such a pace meant every detail, from engineering to environmental stewardship to community relations, had to be flawless. The responsibility felt enormous. As the SpaceX Hawaiian Operations Director, Emily knew that one misstep could unravel the trust painstakingly built over months of dialogue and collaboration. Around the table sat key team members, Carlos with his engineers, Maya and her ecological experts, Leilani representing the Cultural Advisory Council, and several community liaison officers. "We're entering uncharted territory," Emily began, her voice steady but resolute. 25 launches a year is ambitious, but achievable if we stay committed to the principles that have brought us this far: transparency, respect for the land, and innovation. Carlos nodded, tapping a tablet that displayed new propulsion test results. "We've optimized engine cycles to cut noise by an additional 8%, and our emission filters have improved. But we need real-time feedback from local wildlife monitoring to validate the models." Maya chimed in, "Our teams are expanding drone surveillance, and we're deploying additional sensors around critical habitats. Early data shows encouraging trends, but the island's ecosystem is complex. Vigilance is key." Leilani's eyes reflected the weight of generations. The land is alive, and its stories are intertwined with these skies. We must honor those stories as we reach for the stars. Emily's heart swelled with gratitude for this partnership. It wasn't just about rockets, it was about weaving together technology and tradition into a new tapestry of progress. Outside the meeting room, preparations hummed. The launch pad bustled with activity, engineers checked fuel lines, technicians calibrated instruments, and emergency teams rehearsed their protocols. Emily walked the grounds with a sense of purpose, greeting workers and reminding them that their role extended beyond mechanics. They were custodians of this fragile paradise. That evening, community members gathered for a public forum. Emily stood at the podium, feeling the weight of eyes and expectations. She began, "Aloha. Today marks another step in our journey together. I want to share how we're addressing concerns about environmental impact, cultural preservation, and safety." Questions came quickly, about noise, traffic, sacred sites, and the long-term effects on native species. Emily listened intently, responding with honesty and empathy. "We're committed to continuous improvement. Your voices guide our actions." Afterward, a group of students approached, their faces alight with curiosity. Emily smiled and invited them to visit the launch site, to see firsthand the balance of science and stewardship in action. Days later, a sudden alert came, an unexpected fuel system anomaly during pre-launch checks. The team paused all operations to investigate. Tensions rose, investors pressed for quick resolution, but Emily held firm. "Safety and environmental integrity are non-negotiable. We'll fix this properly." The engineers worked tirelessly, uncovering a valve malfunction and implementing design tweaks. The delay, though frustrating, reinforced the culture of caution and responsibility. As operations resumed, Emily noticed the growing integration of local expertise into technical planning. Leilani and her council advised on scheduling launches to avoid culturally significant days and environmental sensitivity periods. This collaboration became a model for how industry and indigenous knowledge could intersect productively. Emily's personal life interwove with her professional journey. Kai's recovery progressed, his presence a quiet source of strength amid the whirlwind. Together, they dreamed of a future where exploration did not come at the expense of home. One crisp morning, as the sun crowned the horizon, the next Starship thundered into the sky, carrying instruments to monitor Earth's climate. The launch was flawless, a beacon of what was possible when respect met innovation. Community celebrations erupted, tempered by reflective moments honoring the land and its people. Emily reflected on the path, how initial skepticism had transformed into partnership, how challenges had been met with resilience, and how a woman's vision had helped bridge worlds. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii was far from finished, but it was already a story of hope, harmony, and the boundless potential when humanity dared to dream wisely. The days following the milestone 10th launch unfolded with a whirlwind of activity, reflection, and renewed determination for Emily and the entire SpaceX Hawaiian operations team. The FAA's approval for 25 annual Starship launches had transformed their work from tentative beginnings into a sustained campaign of progress. But with increased frequency came heightened scrutiny, pressure, and an unyielding need to balance ambition with responsibility. Emily rose early each morning, often before dawn, drawn to the tranquility of the islands as she prepared for the day ahead. The faint glow of stars overhead reminded her of the vast universe their rockets sought to explore, but also of the fragile Earth beneath her feet. Today, she planned to visit several monitoring stations scattered along the coastlines and valleys around the launch site, places where local ecologists tracked wildlife movements and environmental changes in real time. Carlos met her at the operations center, his enthusiasm undimmed by the early hour. "Morning, Emily. The latest telemetry from the Starship's emission sensors is promising. We've reduced nitrogen oxide levels by another 7% after the recent engine tweaks." Emily smiled, appreciating the team's relentless innovation. "Great news, Carlos. Every fraction counts. Let's make sure the community knows this isn't just about numbers, it's about preserving the air they breathe and the ocean's health. Their drive to the first monitoring station was accompanied by the rich sense of plumeria and the distant crash of waves. Maya, leading the ecological team, awaited them with data tablets and field notes. "We've been tracking the Hawaiian hoary bats," she explained, pointing to a live acoustic monitor. "Launch nights still cause some disturbance, but the bats' activity rebounds quickly. Our goal is to minimize disruption to their feeding and breeding cycles." Leilani joined the group soon after, sharing a story about the bat's significance in Hawaiian folklore as guardians of the night sky. "They remind us that even in darkness, there is protection and guidance." Emily absorbed these layers of meaning, the science and the spirit intertwined. Their next stop was a coastal reef restoration site supported by SpaceX funding and local volunteers. Coral bleaching and ocean acidification threatened these underwater gardens, essential to marine biodiversity. Volunteers had planted resilient coral strains and monitored water quality, efforts that complemented SpaceX's commitment to offset carbon emissions. Emily helped secure a donation for expanded restoration, viewing these projects as vital extensions of their mission. Later that afternoon, Emily hosted a virtual town hall with island residents, environmental groups, and cultural leaders. The agenda was transparent: review recent launches, discuss ongoing concerns, and outline future mitigation strategies. Voices ranged from cautious optimism to outright skepticism. Emily listened without interruption, her responses grounded in empathy and facts. "We understand the sacredness of this land and its living systems. Our goal is not to impose but to partner. We're adapting protocols based on your feedback, and we welcome your continued involvement." A young woman named Kaya, a native Hawaiian teacher, raised a hand. "How will SpaceX ensure that our cultural practices and sites remain protected as launch activity intensifies?" Emily turned to Leilani for support. Leilani replied, "We've mapped sensitive areas and established buffer zones. Before each launch, cultural protocols and blessings are performed. We're also educating new staff on Hawaiian values, so respect is embedded in daily operations." The dialogue was difficult but honest. Emily sensed a gradual shift, a willingness to collaborate, rather than confront. Yet challenges loomed. The recent discovery of microplastic accumulation near the launch site raised alarms. Environmental scientists feared rocket fuel byproducts might exacerbate ocean pollution. Emily convened an emergency task force, combining SpaceX engineers, marine biologists, and community activists to develop rapid response measures. The task was daunting, but the team approached it with determination and creativity. They invested in advanced filtration technologies for fuel handling and organized beach cleanups involving local schools. Emily also pushed for research grants to study long-term ecological impacts, recognizing that understanding was key to responsible stewardship. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily walked the shoreline with Kai. The water was warm, the sky painted with soft pastels. "Do you ever worry we're moving too fast?" Kai asked quietly. Emily paused, considering. "Sometimes. But I believe we can do this differently, push boundaries without breaking what's sacred. It's a delicate dance." Kai nodded, his hand finding hers. "I'm proud of you. You're not just managing launches, you're shaping a new way forward." That night, Emily dreamed of the stars, bright points of light in a vast darkness, and of the land's deep roots intertwined beneath. The next launch date approached swiftly. Preparations were meticulous. Emergency response teams rehearsed scenarios, ecological monitors were on heightened alert, and cultural advisors performed traditional ceremonies. As the countdown began, Emily stood among community members and SpaceX staff on the observation deck. The Starship engines ignited with a deep, resonant roar that echoed across the islands. Flames licked the base as the rocket lifted, piercing the blue sky with grace and power. Eyes watched in awe and hope. Data streamed in, emissions within limits, wildlife disturbances minimal, cultural sites undisturbed. The mission was a success, a reaffirmation that progress and preservation could coexist. In the weeks that followed, Emily reflected on the journey. The path had been fraught with obstacles, technical glitches, environmental scares, cultural tensions, but each had forged stronger bonds and deeper understanding. SpaceX's presence in Hawaii was no longer just about space exploration, it had become a catalyst for community engagement, ecological restoration, and cultural revitalization. Emily knew the future held more challenges as launch frequency increased. But she also saw the resilience of the people, the land, and the shared vision that connected them all. As she prepared for the next chapter, Emily carried with her a profound lesson, that true progress requires listening as much as leading, honoring history as well as innovation, and dreaming not just for ourselves, but for generations yet to come. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emily woke early, the soft light of dawn filtering through her window as the distant calls of native birds echoed outside. The morning air was thick with the fragrance of haya blossoms, a reminder of the land's ancient resilience and delicate beauty. Today marked the beginning of a new phase in the Starship program over Hawaii. A phase defined by rapid launches, deeper collaboration with the island communities, and heightened scrutiny from environmental advocates and cultural stewards alike. The FAA's permission for 25 annual launches was more than just a numerical milestone, it was a test of how well SpaceX could balance technological ambition with respect for the island's unique heritage and ecosystems. At the SpaceX Hawaiian Operations Center, Emily was greeted by the steady hum of activity, engineers poring over data, ecologists analyzing wildlife patterns, and community liaisons coordinating outreach efforts. Carlos approached with a tablet in hand, his face lit by the glow of new telemetry reports. The latest Starship engine cycle tests are holding steady. Noise levels are down another 5%, and emissions continue to meet our strict environmental benchmarks. Emily nodded approvingly. That's crucial. Every bit of progress helps strengthen trust with the community. Their morning tour took them first to the coastal monitoring stations where Maya and her ecological team collected real-time data on marine life and bird populations. The Hawaiian petrels, sensitive to disturbances, had so far adapted well to the flight schedule, but Maya emphasized that continuous vigilance was essential. The birds' flight paths overlap with launch windows, so we're using drone surveillance to ensure no disruption occurs during critical nesting periods. Leilani, the cultural advisor, joined them, sharing the traditional stories that cast the petrel as a spiritual messenger. Protecting them honors the ancestors and the land, she said solemnly. The team's next stop was a coral reef restoration site funded by SpaceX's environmental initiative. Volunteers and marine biologists tended to newly planted coral polyps, working against the tide of bleaching and pollution that threatened these underwater ecosystems. Emily reflected on how the Starship program's environmental impact mitigation extended beyond the launch pad, into the air, the water, and the community itself. Later, a virtual town hall convened residents, environmental experts, and SpaceX representatives. Questions ranged from technical specifics about rocket emissions to concerns about traffic congestion on launch days and the preservation of sacred Hawaiian sites. Emily addressed each point with transparency, emphasizing the company's commitment to adapt based on community feedback. "We are partners in this journey," she affirmed. "Your voices shape how we operate." Yet, not all voices were in harmony. A group of local activists remained wary, skeptical of corporate promises. They feared irreversible cultural and ecological damage. Emily reached out personally to these leaders, initiating open dialogues that, over time, softened divides. Some activists agreed to participate in monitoring efforts, turning criticism into collaboration. Challenges arose unexpectedly. A small fuel leak was detected near a sensitive wetland area during routine maintenance. Though contained quickly, the incident stirred unease and demanded immediate corrective action. Emily led the response with transparency, publicly detailing remediation steps and strengthening safety protocols. The event reinforced the delicate balance they maintained and the need for constant vigilance. In quieter moments, Emily found solace walking the island's lush trails with Kai. His recovery had progressed steadily, and their shared dreams of a future where exploration honored the Earth kept her grounded. "We're building more than rockets," Kai mused one evening as the sunset painted the sky. "We're building bridges, between past and future, technology and tradition." As the launch cadence increased, so did the integration of Hawaiian cultural practices into operational rhythms. Before each flight, elders performed blessings, and teams participated in educational sessions on the island's history and values. This fusion fostered a deeper respect among SpaceX personnel and strengthened bonds with the community. When the next Starship soared into the heavens carrying instruments to study Earth's climate, it symbolized more than scientific progress. It was a testament to what could be achieved when innovation and stewardship walked hand in hand. Applause and quiet reflection rippled through onlookers below. Emily's journey was far from over. Ahead lay more launches, evolving technologies, and ongoing dialogue with the people and land she now called family. But each day reaffirmed a profound truth: true exploration honors not only the stars but the Earth beneath, the stories lived, and the dreams yet to be dreamed. Emily stood at the edge of the observation deck, the cool Hawaiian breeze tousling her hair as she gazed out at the Starship poised on the launch pad below. The sun was just beginning to peek over the mountains, casting golden light across the island and illuminating the towering rocket that symbolized both immense technological achievement and the hopes of countless people. This was not just another launch day, it was a critical moment in the ongoing journey to prove that space exploration could coexist harmoniously with the environment and culture of Hawaii. The FAA's approval for up to 25 launches a year had ushered in a new era of ambitious activity, but with it came intensified scrutiny from environmentalists, native Hawaiian groups, and residents alike. Emily felt the weight of their expectations. It wasn't enough to just get the rockets into space, every launch had to honor the land and its people. She reflected on the months since the initial approval, the countless meetings, the compromises, the setbacks, and the breakthroughs. The partnerships forged with community leaders and cultural practitioners were a testament to what could be accomplished when respect was at the forefront. Carlos joined her, holding a tablet that displayed the latest noise and emission readings from recent test firings. "Noise levels are down another 4% after we tweaked the engine cycles," he said, his tone cautiously optimistic. "Emissions are well below our targets." Emily nodded, knowing that these improvements were crucial to maintaining the fragile balance. "Good work. Let's keep pushing. The community is watching, and so am I." As the countdown to launch began, Emily's thoughts turned to the ecological teams. Maya's group had expanded drone surveillance and sensory monitoring to track native bird species, including the endangered Hawaiian petrel. Leilani had organized ceremonies to honor the land before every launch, grounding the technological spectacle in tradition. Their presence reassured Emily that this mission was more than just science, it was a shared act of stewardship. Suddenly, an alert flashed on her communicator, a small anomaly detected in the fuel system. The launch was paused as engineers scrambled to diagnose the issue. Tension rippled through the control center. Emily took a deep breath and addressed the team calmly. "Safety and environmental integrity come first. Let's get this right." Hours later, the problem, a minor valve malfunction, was resolved. The delay was a reminder that progress required patience and diligence. The launch finally commenced as dusk settled. Engines ignited, and the Starship surged upward with a thunderous roar that vibrated through the islands. The crowd below watched breathlessly as the rocket pierced the sky, carrying instruments to study Earth's changing atmosphere. Emily's heart soared with it. Early telemetry confirmed emissions and noise were within limits, and wildlife monitoring showed no disturbances. In the days that followed, community forums reflected a mixture of pride and continued vigilance. Residents shared their experiences, with many expressing awe at the scientific possibilities, while others voiced ongoing concerns about cultural preservation and environmental risks. Emily responded with transparency, outlining new mitigation plans and inviting greater community participation in monitoring and decision-making. One evening, a group of local schoolchildren visited the launch site, eyes wide with wonder. Emily spoke to them about the stars, the rockets, and the importance of caring for their island home. Exploration isn't just about reaching new places, it's about understanding where we come from and protecting it for those who follow, she said. Their eager questions and bright faces filled her with renewed hope. Yet, challenges persisted. A fuel spill during maintenance had contaminated a small stream feeding into a protected wetland. The incident sparked concern and required immediate remediation. Emily led a swift response, working with environmental experts and community leaders to contain and clean up the spill. The episode reinforced the delicate balance they sought to maintain and the constant vigilance required. As months passed, SpaceX deepened its investment in the Hawaiian community. Restoration projects flourished, combining traditional ecological knowledge with modern science. Educational programs inspired youth to engage in STEM fields with a grounded understanding of cultural heritage. Emily often joined these sessions, sharing her journey and emphasizing the power of collaboration. Kai's health improved steadily, their walks along the beach becoming a cherished respite from the pressures of work. They dreamed together of a future where innovation and respect walked hand in hand. Emily understood that her role transcended managing rockets. It was about building bridges between worlds, honoring the land, and inspiring generations. With the next launch approaching, Emily felt the culmination of years of effort, a delicate harmony between ambition and responsibility. As the Starship soared once more into the night sky, Emily watched with quiet pride, knowing that each flight was a step toward a future where humanity's reach extended beyond Earth without sacrificing its roots. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii was more than a tale of technology, it was a living testament to the power of respect, resilience, and hope, a narrative that would inspire long after the rockets faded into the stars. Emily sat quietly in the operations center, the glow of multiple monitors casting soft light on her thoughtful face as the countdown to the next Starship launch ticked steadily downward. The approval for 25 launches a year over Hawaii had transformed their work from tentative beginnings into a relentless pace, and every launch brought with it a complex dance of precision, responsibility, and respect. The stakes were high, not just for SpaceX's ambitions but for the fragile ecosystem and the native Hawaiian culture intertwined with this land. Today's launch wasn't just about science, it was about proving that progress and preservation could truly coexist. Around her, the team moved with focused energy, engineers fine-tuning systems, environmental monitors reviewing data feeds, and cultural advisors preparing traditional blessings. Carlos approached with a tablet in hand, eyes bright with updates. "We've achieved another 6% reduction in noise during engine ignition," he reported. And emission levels continue to stay well within FAA and local environmental standards. Emily smiled, grateful for the relentless innovation from her team. That's critical. The community needs to see and feel that we're committed to minimizing our footprint. The morning unfolded with Emily touring various ecological monitoring sites. Maya's team was out in the field tracking the movements of endangered Hawaiian petrels, using a combination of acoustic sensors and drone footage. The birds' nesting activity remained stable, but we're constantly adjusting flight schedules to avoid peak times, Maya explained. Leilani joined them, weaving in stories of the petrels as spiritual guides, reminders of the island's ancient guardianship. "Our mission is not just technical, but deeply cultural," Leilani said softly. The team's visit continued to coral restoration projects supported by SpaceX's environmental grants. Volunteers tended to fragile coral polyps in protected bays, battling bleaching events exacerbated by climate change. Emily reflected on how the Starship program's environmental efforts extended beyond the launch pad, touching air, water, and community alike. That afternoon, a virtual town hall convened, bringing together residents, environmental scientists, cultural leaders, and SpaceX representatives. The discussion was candid. Questions ranged from the specifics of rocket fuel emissions and noise pollution to concerns about sacred site protection and traffic disruptions on launch days. Emily listened attentively, her responses candid and rooted in respect. "We understand that this land holds deep meaning," she said. "Our operations will continue to evolve based on your guidance." Yet, not all concerns were easily soothed. A local activist group expressed skepticism about corporate promises and the long-term effects on the island's ecology. Emily reached out personally, inviting them to participate directly in monitoring and decision-making processes, turning criticism into collaboration over time. Unexpected challenges emerged. During a routine inspection, a minor fuel leak was discovered near a wetland area. Though quickly contained, the incident sparked community concern. Emily took swift action, communicating transparently about the event and outlining enhanced safety protocols. "Our commitment to the land and people is unwavering," she reassured. Amidst the professional demands, Emily found grounding in her personal life. Kai's recovery progressed steadily, and their evening walks along the beach became sacred moments of reflection. "We're not just building rockets," Kai said one night, "we're building trust between worlds." The Starship launches became rituals blending technology with tradition. Elders performed blessings before each mission, and cultural education was woven into employee training. This fusion deepened respect within the company and community alike. When the next Starship ascended, carrying instruments to monitor Earth's climate, the launch was flawless, an emblem of hope and harmony. Community celebrations mingled with quiet reflections honoring the land. Emily knew the journey ahead would be challenging, but each day reaffirmed a profound truth: that true progress honors the earth beneath our feet as much as the stars above. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii was no longer just about rockets, it was a narrative of resilience, respect, and a future dream together. The air was thick with anticipation as Emily stood on the observation deck, the Starship gleaming under the bright Hawaiian sun, ready for another historic launch. The approval from the FAA for 25 launches a year had transformed the pace and scale of operations at the SpaceX Hawaiian facility, but with that came increasing responsibility, not only to the technology but to the people and land that made these endeavors possible. Emily's mind raced with a mixture of excitement and caution, knowing that each launch represented a delicate balance between pushing the boundaries of space exploration and honoring the cultural and ecological richness of the islands. Carlos approached, his face serious but hopeful. "All systems are green. Noise suppression tests showed an additional 3% improvement, and emission monitoring remains within the strict limits we set." Emily nodded, appreciative of the continuous progress. "We're showing that innovation doesn't have to come at the expense of the environment," she replied. The morning was spent visiting several monitoring stations scattered along the island's coastlines. Maya's team was focused on tracking the Hawaiian hoary bats, whose feeding patterns were sensitive to launch schedules. With real-time data and drone surveillance, they adapted launch windows to avoid critical times. Leilani's presence brought a spiritual dimension to the work, reminding everyone that these animals were not just species to protect but part of a living cultural heritage. The coral reef restoration projects funded by SpaceX were thriving despite the ongoing threats of climate change. Emily joined volunteers planting resilient coral strains, marveling at the fusion of traditional knowledge and modern science that sustained these underwater ecosystems. Later, the virtual town hall convened voices from across the community: residents, environmentalists, cultural leaders, and SpaceX representatives. Questions and concerns were voiced openly. Emily responded with transparency and commitment, acknowledging past mistakes and outlining ambitious plans for continuous improvement. One community elder asked how SpaceX would ensure that sacred sites remained untouched as launch activities increased. Leilani explained the comprehensive mapping and buffer zones established, as well as the integration of cultural practices into daily operations. Yet, not everyone was convinced. A vocal group of activists remained wary, fearing that the relentless pace of launches might overwhelm the delicate balance. Emily met with them personally, fostering dialogue that gradually turned skepticism into partnership. But challenges were inevitable. A small fuel spill during maintenance near a sensitive wetland prompted an immediate emergency response. Emily coordinated cleanup efforts, communicated openly with the public, and implemented stricter protocols to prevent future incidents. The event underscored the constant vigilance required to maintain trust and responsibility. In quieter moments, Emily found solace walking the island's trails with Kai. Their shared commitment to a future where innovation respected the Earth strengthened their bond. "We're not just reaching for the stars," Kai said one evening. "We're learning to honor the ground beneath us as we dream higher." The Starship launches became more than technological feats, they were ceremonies blending science, culture, and community. Blessings before launches and cultural education for SpaceX staff deepened mutual respect. When the next Starship lifted into the sky, carrying instruments to study Earth's climate, it was greeted not only with applause but with quiet reverence. The data it collected promised insights vital to preserving the very land from which it launched. Emily knew the road ahead was fraught with challenges, technical, environmental, and social. But each successful launch, each strengthened relationship, was a step toward a future where human progress did not come at the cost of nature or heritage. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii had evolved into a testament of resilience, respect, and hope, a legacy that would inspire generations long after the rockets faded into the stars. Emily felt the weight of the moment pressing down as she walked through the bustling SpaceX facility on the island. The decision to allow up to 25 Starship launches annually over Hawaii had transformed the landscape of their work, and the community's expectations. The once tentative cooperation between the company and local residents had grown into a complex relationship woven with trust, skepticism, hope, and constant vigilance. Today's launch was not just another test of engineering prowess, it was a critical measure of how well they balanced innovation with cultural respect and environmental stewardship. The morning light glinted off the steel towers of the launch pad, and a faint hum of preparation filled the air. Carlos met Emily near the control center, his expression focused yet optimistic. "Our latest noise attenuation systems have reduced decibel levels by another 4%, he reported, handing her a tablet with updated emission statistics. All within the strict limits set by the FAA and local environmental groups. Emily's lips curved into a tight smile. "Every decibel counts," she said. "This is about proving we can launch safely and responsibly." She spent the next few hours touring the island's ecological monitoring sites with Maya. The team's use of drones, acoustic sensors, and GPS trackers had allowed unprecedented insight into the behavior of native species, especially the Hawaiian petrel and the hoary bat. They adjusted flight schedules dynamically, ensuring the least disturbance during critical nesting and feeding periods. Leilani joined the group, her presence grounding the technological work in deep cultural meaning. She recounted ancestral stories linking the petrel to the spirits of the island, reminding everyone that the rocket's roar was not just noise but a force to be reckoned with in a sacred space. At a coral restoration site, volunteers carefully tended to newly planted colonies, resilient varieties designed to withstand warming seas and acidification. Emily admired the blend of modern scientific methods and native ecological knowledge. She understood that their mission extended beyond rockets, it was about preserving the land and sea for future generations. That afternoon's virtual town hall brought together a chorus of voices, residents, scientists, cultural leaders, activists, and SpaceX personnel. Concerns ranged from emissions and noise pollution to traffic congestion and sacred site preservation. Emily listened intently, responding with candor and respect. She acknowledged mistakes, like the recent fuel leak near a wetland, and detailed the swift remediation and enhanced safeguards put in place. "We are partners in this endeavor," she said. "Your voices guide our actions." Some activists remained wary, fearful that rapid launch cadences would outpace environmental protections. Emily engaged directly with them in follow-up meetings, inviting collaboration in monitoring efforts and decision-making, slowly transforming criticism into cooperation. Challenges continued. A technical glitch delayed a launch by several hours, testing the team's patience and resilience. Still, the problem was resolved without incident, and the launch eventually soared flawlessly into the blue Hawaiian sky, carrying instruments to study Earth's climate. The crowd below watched in awe as the rocket ascended, a symbol of hope and progress intertwined. In her quieter moments, Emily walked the island's lush trails with Kai, their bond strengthened by shared dreams of a future where technology honored the earth and culture alike. "We're not just exploring space," Kai mused one evening. "We're learning to explore how to coexist." The blending of cultural ceremonies with technical operations deepened within SpaceX. Blessings before launches and ongoing cultural education helped staff appreciate the sacredness of the land and the responsibility they bore. Each successful flight was more than a test, it was a promise kept. Emily knew the road ahead was long and fraught with challenges, technical, ecological, and social, but every step forward reaffirmed a vital truth: human progress need not come at the expense of the Earth or its stories. SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii had become a testament to resilience, respect, and hope, a story to inspire generations as far as the stars themselves. Emily stood at the edge of the observation deck, the salty ocean breeze carrying the scent of plumeria and the distant echo of waves crashing against volcanic shores. Below her, the Starship stood tall and gleaming against the backdrop of lush green hills and the deep blue Pacific. This was no ordinary launch day, it marked the culmination of years of dedication, negotiations, and delicate balancing acts. The Federal Aviation Administration had granted approval for up to 25 Starship launches annually over Hawaii, an unprecedented number that signaled a new era for SpaceX and the island community alike. Yet with this milestone came enormous responsibility. Emily's thoughts swirled with memories of the journey, the initial skepticism from locals, the tense meetings, the environmental setbacks, and the gradual building of trust through transparent dialogue and genuine respect for Hawaiian culture and ecology. Carlos approached her with a tablet, the screen displaying the latest telemetry and environmental impact reports. "Noise levels are down 7% since the last launch, and emissions remain well within our limits," he said, a note of pride in his voice. Emily nodded thoughtfully. "That's vital. We need to keep proving that progress and preservation can coexist." Their morning began with a tour of the monitoring stations dotting the island's rugged coastline. Maya and her team tracked the flight paths of the endangered Hawaiian petrel, using drones and acoustic sensors to ensure no disruption during nesting periods. Leilani, the cultural liaison, shared stories that cast the petrel as a messenger between worlds, reminding everyone that the rocket's roar must be measured against centuries of ancestral reverence. At the coral restoration site, volunteers carefully tended resilient coral strains, combating the dual threats of climate change and ocean acidification. Emily marveled at the synergy between cutting-edge science and traditional ecological knowledge that defined these projects. Later, a virtual town hall convened, drawing voices from all corners of the community. Concerns ranged from environmental impact and sacred site preservation to traffic management on launch days. Emily responded with transparency, outlining the robust safety protocols, the collaborative cultural stewardship initiatives, and the ongoing community engagement efforts. Yet some voices remained cautious, wary of corporate promises and the long-term effects of rapid launch cadences. Emily met with local activists, fostering dialogue that gradually transformed skepticism into collaboration. Unexpected challenges tested the team's resolve. A minor fuel spill near a protected wetland demanded swift remediation and reinforced the imperative for constant vigilance. Through it all, Emily found grounding in her relationship with Kai, whose recovery had become a source of quiet strength. Their evening walks along the beach were moments of reflection and shared vision, a future where technology honored the earth and culture. As the countdown to launch neared its final seconds, elders performed a traditional blessing, weaving chants and prayers into the fabric of the day. The engines ignited, and the Starship surged skyward, carrying instruments to study Earth's climate, a beacon of hope and respect rising from sacred soil. The crowd below watched in awe, hearts lifted alongside the rocket. Emily knew the journey ahead remained complex, but each launch reaffirmed a vital truth: true exploration honors both the stars above and the land beneath. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii had become a living testament to resilience, respect, and the enduring power of hope, a legacy to inspire generations yet to come. Emily's heart pounded as she stood near the Launch Control Center, the towering Starship silhouetted against the early morning sky. The past year had been a whirlwind of challenges, breakthroughs, and relentless effort to ensure that SpaceX's ambitious plan to conduct 25 Starship launches over Hawaii would proceed responsibly. The Federal Aviation Administration's approval marked a historic milestone, but it also meant that the company's commitments to environmental stewardship and cultural respect were under more intense scrutiny than ever before. Every launch had become a delicate balance, a dance between technological progress and the preservation of the island's unique heritage and ecology. Carlos approached, holding a tablet displaying real-time data. Noise emissions are stable and 5% below the regulatory limits. Our latest enhancements to the engine's throttle profile are really making a difference, he reported with a cautious smile. Emily nodded. That's encouraging. The community needs to feel that we're doing more than just meeting requirements, we have to exceed them. The day's work began with a visit to the island's coastal monitoring stations. Maya's team was tracking the nocturnal activity of the Hawaiian hoary bats, whose feeding patterns were sensitive to the timing of launches. Using a combination of thermal imaging and acoustic sensors, they adjusted the launch windows dynamically to minimize disturbances. Leilani accompanied them, sharing stories passed down through generations that linked the bats to island guardianship and reminding the team that their mission was as much cultural as it was scientific. Later, Emily joined volunteers at a coral restoration site. The fragile reefs had suffered from bleaching events worsened by climate change, but the collaborative efforts integrating traditional Hawaiian ecological practices with modern restoration science offered hope. Emily marveled at the dedication of the volunteers and the resilience of the coral polyps taking root. That evening, a virtual town hall brought together voices from across the community, residents, environmental advocates, cultural leaders, and SpaceX officials. The dialogue was frank, with concerns voiced about traffic congestion, noise pollution, and the protection of sacred sites. Emily listened intently, responding with transparency about recent incidents, including a minor fuel spill near a sensitive wetland, and the enhanced safety measures now in place. We're committed to being good stewards of this land and good neighbors to this community, she affirmed. Despite some lingering skepticism, the engagement was a step forward. Emily arranged follow-up meetings with activist groups, inviting them to participate directly in environmental monitoring and decision-making, fostering a spirit of collaboration rather than conflict. Unexpected technical challenges tested the team's resilience. A software glitch delayed a launch by several hours, causing frustration but no compromise to safety. When the Starship finally lifted off, the crowd below watched in awe as it pierced the blue sky, carrying instruments designed to study Earth's climate and atmospheric changes. In quieter moments, Emily found comfort in walks along the beach with Kai. Their shared vision of a future where technology and tradition coexisted harmoniously was a source of strength amid the pressures of her role. It's not just about reaching the stars, Kai said one evening, it's about learning how to honor where we come from. Cultural rituals had become an integral part of launch preparations. Elders performed blessings, weaving chants and prayers that echoed through the launch pad, grounding the high-tech spectacle in ancient reverence. SpaceX staff underwent cultural sensitivity training, deepening their understanding of the land's significance. Each successful launch was a reaffirmation of the delicate balance they sought, between human ambition and environmental responsibility, between innovation and cultural respect. Emily knew the path ahead would be filled with challenges, but she remained hopeful. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii was evolving into something greater than technological achievement. It was becoming a testament to resilience, respect, and the enduring power of hope, a legacy that would inspire not only the generations who watched the rockets soar but those who would carry forward the lessons learned here on this sacred island. Emily stood quietly at the edge of the launch site, the humid Hawaiian air thick with anticipation and the faint scent of salt and earth. The Starship before her was no longer just a marvel of engineering, it was a symbol of a fragile promise. After months of negotiations, environmental studies, and cultural consultations, SpaceX's plan to conduct 25 launches a year over Hawaii had finally received the FAA's green light. But this approval was not merely a permit to blast rockets skyward, it was a solemn responsibility to honor the land, the people, and the spirits that had protected these islands for centuries. Carlos approached with his usual mix of excitement and meticulous care. All systems are nominal. Noise reduction protocols are holding steady, and emission levels are within the strict limits set by both the FAA and the island's Environmental Council, he reported, his voice steady despite the tension lingering in the air. Emily nodded, feeling the weight of his words. That's what we need. Progress that respects the balance. Their morning was filled with visits to ecological monitoring stations scattered across the island's rugged coast. Maya's team was deep in their work, tracking the nesting patterns of the endangered Hawaiian petrel with drones and acoustic sensors that minimized disturbance. Leilani walked alongside them, her stories weaving the ancient and the modern together, reminding the team that these birds were more than species to protect, they were messengers between worlds, sacred threads in the island's tapestry. At a coral restoration project near a secluded bay, volunteers tended to clusters of resilient coral polyps, battling the insidious threats of warming seas and acidification. Emily marveled at the blend of traditional knowledge and scientific innovation that fueled these efforts, a partnership between the community and SpaceX that went far beyond rockets. That evening, a virtual town hall brought together voices from across the spectrum, island residents, environmental scientists, cultural elders, SpaceX officials, and activists. Concerns about noise, sacred site preservation, traffic disruptions, and ecological impact were voiced openly. Emily listened, her responses grounded in transparency and respect. She acknowledged past missteps, including a minor fuel leak near a wetland that had been swiftly contained and remedied, and laid out plans for enhanced safety measures and ongoing community engagement. Some skepticism remained, but Emily's direct engagement with concerned groups after the meeting helped build bridges rather than walls. Unexpected hurdles arose. A technical glitch delayed the launch by hours, testing the team's patience and resolve. But when the engines finally ignited and the Starship surged skyward, it carried more than scientific instruments, it carried the hopes of a community striving to harmonize tradition and technology. In quieter moments, Emily walked the island's shore with Kai, their conversations weaving dreams of a future where innovation honored the Earth as deeply as it reached for the stars. We're not just launching rockets, Kai mused. We're learning how to belong. The blend of cultural blessings with the high-tech launch sequence had become a powerful ritual, grounding the company's ambitious goals in humility and reverence. Staff underwent ongoing cultural sensitivity training, deepening their understanding of the land's spiritual significance. Each successful launch was a step forward in an evolving story, not just of space exploration but of resilience, respect, and hope. Emily knew challenges would continue, but she remained certain that the legacy being built here on this sacred island would inspire generations to come, proof that progress and preservation could truly soar together. Emily stood on the observation deck as the first light of dawn painted the Hawaiian sky in soft shades of orange and pink. Below her, the Starship rested on the launch pad, a towering monument of human ingenuity and dreams reaching beyond the blue horizon. This launch was the first in a new chapter. With the FAA's approval for 25 annual launches over Hawaii, SpaceX was entering an unprecedented phase. But with opportunity came immense responsibility, to protect the island's delicate environment, to honor its rich cultural heritage, and to ensure that progress did not come at the expense of those who called this land home. Carlos approached, his face serious yet hopeful. Noise levels are consistently below our previous launches by 8%, and the latest emission readings are within the strictest limits yet, he reported, scrolling through data on his tablet. Emily nodded, a flicker of pride mixed with the familiar tension. Good. We have to keep raising the bar. Their day began with visits to the island's ecological monitoring stations, where Maya and her team tracked endangered species like the Hawaiian hoary bat and the petrel, carefully adjusting launch times to minimize disruption. Leilani, serving as the cultural liaison, shared stories of how these creatures were woven into the spiritual fabric of the islands, reinforcing the deep responsibility resting on their shoulders. At a nearby coral restoration site, volunteers nurtured new colonies, blending cutting-edge science with indigenous ecological knowledge to combat the relentless threats of climate change. Emily felt a swell of hope witnessing this fusion of past and future. That evening, a virtual town hall convened voices from across the community: residents, environmentalists, cultural leaders, SpaceX engineers, and activists. The dialogue was candid and sometimes tense. Concerns about noise pollution, sacred site protection, and increased traffic were voiced openly. Emily responded with transparency, acknowledging past mistakes such as a minor fuel leak near a protected wetland and detailing strengthened safety protocols and ongoing community engagement efforts. Some skepticism remained, but Emily's commitment to genuine collaboration began to soften doubts. In quieter moments, Emily found solace walking the island's lush trails with Kai. Their shared vision of a future where technology and tradition could coexist fueled her resolve. "It's not just about reaching the stars," Kai said one evening. "It's about honoring the ground beneath our feet." Launch day was a tapestry of ancient and modern rituals. Elders performed blessings, weaving chants and prayers into the launch sequence, grounding the spectacle in centuries of reverence. SpaceX staff underwent cultural sensitivity training, deepening their understanding of the sacredness of the land and the weight of their mission. When the engines ignited and the Starship soared into the azure sky, carrying instruments to study Earth's climate, the crowd below erupted in awe and quiet reverence. This was more than a rocket launch, it was a promise kept. Emily knew the road ahead would bring challenges, technical, ecological, and social, but each launch affirmed a profound truth: true progress honors both the stars above and the Earth below. The story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii had become a living testament to resilience, respect, and hope, a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Emily stood on the cliffside trail, the warm trade winds brushing against her face as she gazed out over the vast Pacific. Below, the launch pad buzzed with activity, Starship towering tall, ready for another mission into the heavens. The FAA's recent approval allowing SpaceX to conduct up to 25 Starship launches annually over Hawaii had transformed their ambitions into tangible reality, yet it also deepened the stakes. Every launch was now a delicate balancing act between technological triumph and the profound responsibility to honor the island's unique environment and heritage. Carlos joined her, his face lit with cautious optimism. "Our latest emissions report shows a 10% decrease compared to last quarter. Noise levels are also down thanks to the new sound dampening measures." Emily smiled slightly, feeling the weight of progress balanced with vigilance. "That's what I like to hear. We need to keep pushing the boundaries, not just in space, but in how we coexist with this land." Their day began with a visit to the coastal monitoring stations where Maya and her team were tracking the nesting patterns of the endangered Hawaiian petrel. Using drones outfitted with low disturbance sensors, they mapped flight paths to adjust launch windows, minimizing impact during sensitive breeding seasons. Leilani, the cultural liaison, walked alongside, sharing sacred stories that had been passed down through generations, reminding all that the petrel was more than a bird, but a spiritual messenger of the islands. Later, Emily attended a coral restoration project, where volunteers planted resilient coral species designed to withstand warming seas and acidification. The synergy between indigenous knowledge and modern science created a hopeful vision for the future of the reefs. Emily marveled at the dedication, understanding that these efforts symbolized a larger truth: progress must be rooted in respect for the Earth. That evening, a virtual town hall brought together a tapestry of voices: residents concerned about noise pollution and sacred site preservation, environmentalists worried about ecological disruption, cultural elders emphasizing spiritual protection, and SpaceX engineers committed to transparency and collaboration. The conversation was honest and sometimes tense. Emily listened intently, acknowledging past missteps, including a recent minor fuel spill near a protected wetland, and outlining stringent new safety protocols and ongoing community engagement initiatives. Though skepticism lingered among some activists, Emily's willingness to engage and share control began to build bridges. Follow-up meetings fostered partnerships where community members helped co-monitor environmental indicators, turning critics into collaborators. Technical challenges tested the team's resilience. A software malfunction delayed a launch, provoking frustration but no safety compromise. When engines finally roared to life, the Starship ascended majestically, carrying instruments to study atmospheric changes linked to climate shifts, a mission blending exploration with stewardship. In quiet moments, Emily walked the island's trails with Kai. Their shared vision of blending innovation with tradition offered grounding hope. "We're not just reaching for the stars," Kai reflected, "we're learning how to honor the land that holds us." Cultural blessings had become integral to launch preparations. Elders performed chants and prayers that wove ancient reverence into the spacefaring endeavor. Staff underwent cultural education, deepening respect for the sacred landscape they traversed. Each successful launch reaffirmed that technology and tradition could coexist. Emily knew challenges lay ahead, technical setbacks, environmental hurdles, social tensions, but she remained hopeful. The evolving story of SpaceX's Starship launches over Hawaii was more than a tale of rockets and regulations, it was a testament to resilience, respect, and hope, a legacy reaching as far as the stars and as deep as the island's roots. Emily stood at the shoreline, watching the sun melt into the horizon, painting the sky with hues of fiery orange and soft lavender. The rhythmic crash of waves against the volcanic rocks matched the steady beat of her heart, a heart heavy with the weight of responsibility but buoyed by the promise of progress. SpaceX's new chapter of conducting 25 Starship launches annually over Hawaii was underway, a bold step into the future that demanded not only technical mastery but a deep, unwavering respect for this sacred land and its people. Carlos joined her, holding a tablet glowing with the latest environmental data. Air quality readings remain well within limits, and noise monitoring shows a 12% reduction compared to the last launch, he reported with a cautious smile. Emily nodded, the gravity of those numbers grounding her. "Every fraction counts. We owe this place our best efforts." Their day began with a trip to the remote monitoring stations scattered along the island's rugged coastline. Maya's team was in the field, tracking the Hawaiian hoary bat and other endangered species with sensitive equipment designed to minimize disruption. Leilani accompanied them, recounting ancestral tales that imbued the land and its creatures with profound spiritual significance, reinforcing the team's mission to protect both life and legacy. Later, Emily visited the coral restoration site where volunteers, blending traditional Hawaiian ecological knowledge with cutting-edge science, nurtured coral colonies struggling against warming oceans and acidification. Witnessing the collaborative spirit gave her hope that technology and tradition could indeed walk hand in hand. That evening, a virtual town hall convened a diverse gathering of voices. Residents wary of environmental and cultural impact, activists demanding accountability, cultural leaders emphasizing sacred site preservation, and SpaceX officials committed to transparent dialogue. Emily listened with an open heart, acknowledging past mistakes, including a minor but swiftly addressed fuel leak near a wetland, and detailing new safety protocols and community partnership programs. Some doubts lingered, but seeds of trust were being planted. Follow-up meetings saw activists invited into monitoring roles, fostering shared stewardship. Technical hiccups tested the team's resilience. A software glitch delayed a launch, stirring frustration but not undermining safety. When the Starship finally ascended, carrying instruments to study Earth's climate, it embodied more than a mission, it symbolized a promise fulfilled. In quieter moments, Emily walked the island's lush trails with Kai, their conversations weaving dreams of a future where innovation honored the Earth and its stories. "Reaching for the stars means remembering where we come from," Kai said softly. Launch preparations blended the ancient with the futuristic. Elders performed blessings, chants weaving spiritual protection into the countdown. SpaceX staff participated in cultural sensitivity workshops, deepening their connection to the land. Each successful launch was a milestone not just of technology but of trust, respect, and hope. Emily knew the path forward would be challenging, but she believed in the evolving story, a story of resilience, harmony, and the enduring human spirit, one that would inspire generations as surely as the rocket soared into the Hawaiian sky. The launch pad shimmered under the mid-morning sun, surrounded by wind-stirred palms and the distant hush of waves. Emily stood with her arms crossed, scanning every corner of the site with the sharp eyes of someone who had spent months weaving together the impossible: industry, innovation, and island tradition. The 11th Starship launch since the FAA's approval was less than an hour away, and while technically everything was running perfectly, Emily felt the familiar current of tension beneath the surface, a tension born not of failure, but of the immense stakes they now carried. The Hawaiian community was watching. Environmental scientists were watching. Cultural leaders, government regulators, and young students who had grown up beneath both the stars and the steel skeletons of the new space frontier, they were all watching, not just for the spectacle of flight, but to see if SpaceX would live up to its word. Carlos jogged up beside her, breathless and excited. Telemetry is solid. Wind shear is within acceptable limits, and the weather is holding. Noise baffles are holding at 82% efficiency. We might beat our record today. Emily allowed herself a small smile. Good. The quieter we are, the more they'll listen. Her meaning wasn't lost on Carlos. They both knew that no matter how impressive the rocket looked, it was the silence they left behind, less disruption to wildlife, less cultural friction, fewer environmental concerns, that would earn lasting respect. They had already faced more than their share of tests. Earlier that month, a low-pressure valve had malfunctioned during fueling, halting the launch with only minutes on the countdown clock. Though it was corrected within days, the delay had stirred frustration and sparked another wave of media scrutiny. Was SpaceX moving too fast? Were 25 launches a year too many for such a culturally and environmentally sensitive region? Emily hadn't shied away from the criticism. Instead, she had doubled down on transparency, issuing detailed updates, inviting reporters to tour mitigation sites, and even appearing in a student-led livestream to answer questions from Hawaiian high schoolers. "You're not just launching a rocket," one of them had said. "You're launching a relationship." That stuck with her. That relationship was tested constantly. Earlier in the week, Emily and Leilani had visited a sacred site just beyond the no-go perimeter near the edge of a forest preserve. Despite previous assurances that construction activity would not encroach, drone footage had revealed a temporary road built too close to the designated boundary. It wasn't malicious, it was a subcontractor's error during a rush, but it was careless. And on this island, careless wasn't acceptable. Leilani had been furious at first. "It's not about the trees or the soil, it's about memory," she said, her voice low and heavy. "That trail is older than this company. Older than this country." Emily had offered a full apology, stood beside Leilani at a community meeting, and immediately halted all operations in the area. The road was dismantled the next day. A new oversight system was installed. And more importantly, Leilani was empowered to lead a new cultural safety division, a small but growing team tasked with ensuring every SpaceX initiative met not just technical standards, but ancestral ones. Emily didn't just want compliance. She wanted integration. She looked out over the small group gathering near the viewing area, families with young children, kupuna elders, surfers, environmentalists with field notebooks, and a few tourists who had no idea what they were about to witness. They'd all become part of this extended ecosystem, an unlikely blend of rocket fuel and reef health, launch codes and cultural chants. Speaking of which, the pre-launch blessing was beginning. A small group of native Hawaiian practitioners stood in a circle at the edge of the pad, chanting in unison. SpaceX employees, many of whom were now fluent in the meanings behind these rituals, stood respectfully behind them, heads bowed. A few wore leis of ti leaves or kukui nuts, symbols of protection and knowledge. Emily stepped back, letting the sounds wash over her. She wasn't Hawaiian. She didn't pretend to be. But she had learned, slowly and imperfectly, that leadership here meant listening first, speaking second, and understanding that not all wisdom came in charts and spreadsheets. Her earpiece crackled. "Emily, we're at T-10. You want to address the team?" She pressed her transmitter. "On my way." Inside the control center, the atmosphere was both electric and calm, veteran engineers focused on checklists, younger interns clutching headsets with the awe of first-time responsibility. The countdown ticked steadily downward as Emily stepped to the center console. "I just want to say thank you," she said, her voice clear over the internal comms. "This isn't just another launch. Every single one of these missions is a statement, to the world, to the island, to ourselves, that space exploration doesn't have to come at the cost of connection, culture, or conscience. Let's prove it again today." The final countdown echoed through the room. T-5. 4. 3. 2. 1, ignition. The ground trembled. The Starship surged upward, flames unfurling from its base like ribbons of sunlight. The noise suppression systems did their job, thunderous but not overwhelming. Seabirds startled from nearby cliffs returned to their perches within moments. Nearby tide pools, monitored with real-time sensors, showed no spike in thermal readings or sediment displacement. Emily exhaled only when the rocket cleared the stratosphere. Applause broke out in the room, but she didn't celebrate right away. Instead, she watched the telemetry one more time. Everything stable. Everything safe. Outside, the crowd stood quietly, watching the trail of smoke dissolve into blue. Later, as the sky settled back into peace, Emily found Kai waiting for her by the shoreline, barefoot in the sand. "That was the quietest launch yet," he said. "Did you hear the birds after? They weren't even flustered." Emily nodded. "It's taken months to get here. And we're still learning." Kai took her hand, and they began to walk. "Do you think," he asked, "that this will last? The harmony, I mean." Emily didn't answer right away. She looked out at the ocean, then back toward the distant launch site. "It'll last if we earn it every single day. If we treat every launch like it's our first. And if we keep remembering what the stars are for. Which is to remind us where we come from." That night, under a blanket of stars so clear it seemed painted by hand, Emily sat with her team around a small bonfire. No laptops, no tablets. Just conversation, laughter, and stories. About misfires and breakthroughs, island myths and orbital mechanics, childhood dreams and adult accountability. The 11th Starship had made it. But the real launch was the one still unfolding on the ground, the steady lift of trust, the slow orbit of understanding, and the shared trajectory of a community that dared to believe progress and preservation could share the same sky. And in that moment, beneath the Milky Way and beside the fire, it felt like they just might be right. The 12th launch was approaching, but this time, the pressure felt different. Not heavier, Emily had grown used to that, but more expansive, more encompassing. The launch window fell on a day of deep cultural importance on the island, Makahiki, the season of peace and harvest. Traditionally, this was a time when battles ceased, when communities reflected and renewed. No weapons, no conflicts, no construction. And while rockets were not part of ancient Hawaiian life, many in the community had made clear that a launch on this day would feel like a disruption, a noise in the quiet, a trespass on sacred rhythm. Emily had known the date for months. She had prepared. She'd scheduled the 12th launch a full week before Makahiki began, but unexpected delays, solar winds, a damaged pressure valve, and an unseasonal lightning storm, had pushed them dangerously close. Now, if they launched as rescheduled, it would fall on the very morning Makahiki began. "We'll get clearance if we need it," Carlos said in the control room, trying to reassure her. "It's within the FAA window. Technically we're fine." "Technically," Emily said, "won't mean anything if we break trust." She stared at the mission clock on the wall. It was ticking down steadily, but in her mind, she heard another clock, one built of generations, of ancestors, of stories whispered into the land itself. And in that silence, she made a decision. "Postpone it," she said. Carlos blinked. "What?" "We've already got teams positioned across all 5 sites. The weather's perfect. If we miss this window, we lose 2 weeks." "We'll take the loss," Emily said, voice steady. "Tell the FAA, the sponsors, everyone. We're not launching on Makahiki." He didn't argue. Not because he agreed, he wasn't sure he did, but because he trusted her. That was the culture she'd worked to build from day one. Led not just with precision, but with purpose. By sunset, the island's reaction was already visible. Social media buzzed with praise. Elders sent messages of quiet gratitude. One village invited the SpaceX team to attend a traditional feast as guests, not outsiders. Leilani, who had watched Emily make the announcement over a live internal broadcast, found her on the hill above the observation platform. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I know. But you did." Emily turned toward her. "The launches matter. But so does the timing. I don't want success that costs us our relationship here. That's not winning. That's just launching rockets and leaving behind resentment." Leilani smiled softly. "That was Pono," she said. "Balanced. Right." Emily breathed in the twilight air, the scent of plumeria, sea salt, and slow-cooked taro drifting up from the valley. For the first time in weeks, she felt peace. With the launch on hold, the team redirected their energy into outreach. Engineers visited local schools. Biologists hosted reef monitoring workshops for kids. Even Kai offered a short lecture at the local university titled "Stars and Stories: How Cultural Cosmology Informs Modern Science." It was standing room only. Without the noise of a countdown, something unexpected happened. People listened more deeply. Trust grew. 2 weeks later, the launch finally happened, and it was one of the smoothest yet. Not because of any change in hardware or coding, but because it carried no friction. No resistance. Only momentum. That same week, Emily received an invitation from the governor's office. They wanted her to sit on a new advisory board focused on aerospace partnerships in the Pacific, ensuring environmental integrity and indigenous consultation became part of federal aerospace policy. She agreed on one condition, that Leilani be invited too. It wasn't all perfect. There were still pushbacks. A mainland blogger accused SpaceX of delaying progress for politics, and an internal investor questioned the cost-benefit of community delays. But Emily didn't flinch. She replied to both with one sentence: "If our future doesn't include respect, it's just another version of the past." At a community potluck celebrating the success of the 12th launch, one elder stood beside Emily, placing a lei around her neck. "Before you came," he said, "we thought they were just building noise machines. Now we see you're building something else. Maybe even something sacred." Emily didn't respond right away. There was nothing to say that would match the gravity of those words. So she simply bowed her head, the lei cool against her skin, and said, "Mahalo." That night, she and Kai sat barefoot on the beach, stars glittering above them like scattered stories. The fire between them crackled, low and warm. "You know," Kai said, "when I was younger, I used to think rockets were just weapons that didn't have a target." Emily glanced over. "But now I see, they can be messages too. Letters sent upward, from one generation to the next." Emily smiled. "Then we better keep writing them carefully." And in the hush that followed, with the wind pulling gently at her hair and the ocean repeating its ancient lullaby, Emily understood something new. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It was a movement. Emily awoke before the sun, the sky still clinging to the final traces of night. Her bungalow was quiet, save for the distant sound of waves brushing the shore and the occasional rustle of palm leaves in the warm wind. Outside, a few stars lingered, fading slowly into the light. She sipped black coffee from a chipped ceramic mug and reviewed her notes for the day ahead. The 13th Starship launch was scheduled for that evening, this one a joint mission with NOAA, deploying climate monitoring satellites to track oceanic temperature shifts and monitor microplastics from orbit. A scientific endeavor, yes, but also one that carried enormous symbolic weight. Every mission now had layers. Beneath the code and cargo was culture. Beneath the technical briefings were community conversations. And beneath every countdown was a decision: how do you advance without overrunning what you stand on? At the launch site, the team was already in motion. Carlos met her by the control center, tablet in hand. Wind is cooperative. Solar interference minimal. Launch pad's been cleared since midnight, no irregularities. Oh, and the new acoustic buffer panels passed their first stress test. We're good. Environmental team? Emily asked, walking briskly. Bad activity near the north perimeter last night, but well outside the no disturbance zone. Maya already shifted the thermal sensors to compensate. We're covered. Excellent, she said, then paused. Today's the 1-year mark, isn't it? Carlos smiled. Exactly 1 year since the FAA gave us the go-ahead. Emily looked toward the Starship, gleaming in the morning light. Feels like longer. It had only been 12 months, but the transformation in that time was immeasurable. What began as a controversial expansion into a sacred and sensitive place had evolved into something complex, fragile, and unexpectedly beautiful. Not perfect, but purposeful. The morning was spent in final systems checks and community briefings. Emily joined a group of schoolchildren touring the facility, an outreach program they'd started months ago. She knelt beside a curious 7-year-old pointing at the Starship model. Does it go to Mars? The girl asked. Someday, Emily replied. But right now, it's going to help us learn about the ocean. Why does space care about the ocean? Emily paused, then smiled. Because Earth is still our most important planet. The girl nodded as if that made perfect sense. Later, Emily attended a pre-launch cultural ceremony led by Leilani and 3 visiting elders. They stood near a grove of kukui trees, hands extended in blessing. One of the elders, a woman named Kainoa, addressed the team afterward. We see your lights in the sky, she said softly. But we also feel your footsteps in our land. You've learned to walk more gently. That means something. It does not erase the past, but it tells us you are trying. And trying, with humility, is a kind of honor. Emily bowed her head, deeply moved. As the afternoon slid into golden evening, preparations intensified. The launch path was clear, the sea winds had calmed, and the reef monitors showed no change in underwater vibration. The coastal tide pools, sensitive to sound, remained still and undisturbed. At 6:45 p.m., with the sun low on the horizon, the control room came alive. Engineers called out last-minute confirmations, satellite telemetry screens glowed green, and Emily stood at her console, headset on, voice calm but electric with focus. T-5 minutes, Carlos announced. Outside, hundreds had gathered along designated observation points. Island residents, tourists, researchers, students. All standing together beneath the sky. Some wore traditional flower garlands, others carried signs that said, "Science is sacred," and, "Protect the land, reach the stars." Inside the control room, Emily watched the final launch camera feed. The engines began to glow. The hum in the room grew still. T-10 seconds. A collective breath was held. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition. The Starship roared to life. A tower of fire lifted it from the pad, and in a blink it was airborne, rising through the deepening blue, flames reflecting off the ocean below. The crowd gasped. Not because it was loud, it was quieter than anyone expected, but because it was so beautiful. It was the kind of sight that didn't just impress, it transformed. Back inside, telemetry confirmed clean stage separation. The payload doors opened in sequence. The satellite array deployed flawlessly. Cheers erupted, but Emily simply closed her eyes for a moment and smiled. The mission wasn't over. But the message was clear: we can do this. After the launch, a small celebration was held near the community center. There was music, poi and Kahlua pork, chilled hibiscus drinks, and children running barefoot through the grass. Leilani joined Emily by a torchlit bench. "You know," Leilani said, "a year ago, I wasn't sure we could trust you." "I wasn't sure we could do it either," Emily admitted. "But we kept showing up. And listening." Leilani nodded, then gestured to the children playing nearby. "They're the ones who'll decide if we got this right. Not us." Emily looked out at the horizon. "Then we better make sure they have something worth inheriting." That night, under a cloudless sky, the newest Starship traced a faint silver arc above the Pacific. Satellites spun quietly in low Earth orbit, transmitting oceans of data. But what mattered most couldn't be measured by sensors. It was felt, in the stillness of tide pools, the quiet return of birds to their nesting grounds, and the way elders offered blessings instead of warnings. A year ago, people had asked, could SpaceX coexist with Hawaii's sacred landscapes? Now, Emily thought, we're starting to answer. With care. With humility. And with stars that rise not just above us, but within us. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?